Hello and welcome to everyone. It's a joy to share with you on this topic of developing inner strength through spiritual tests. I'm here at Ananda Village, and I'm happy to be able to be with you at this class today. Let's start with a prayer together. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Great Masters, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswarji, beloved Gurudev, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, we bow at thy feet. O great Masters, O Jesus, at this time of Easter and resurrection, help us to resurrect our souls, our spirits in thee, in thy light, love, in thy peace. We bow at thy feet again and again at this holy time. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Let's hear a song of Swamiji's and then an excerpt from a talk by Swami Kriyanandaji. Welcome again, everyone.
Behold all the wonders God's grace can bestow, if you but reclaim what you've given. Why not ask of God any wonder you crave? Worship me to satisfy all human needs. Dominion now over all this noble earth. All I ask of you is worship me. Get thee behind me, Jesus declared. Satan, know you not our Father offers love in your stead. His gift of love to all is my only food. He is all I own. What does man need but him?
Then the darkness lifted, love destroyed Satan's power. Then at last the Savior could begin bringing all to God. For he taught them in freedom, wanting not in return. All he offered was perfect peace, perfect freedom of soul.
God is all I love. He is all there is. Wise is he who says, I am wholly his. God is all I fear. Lo, my throne of power, shaken by his love, was destroyed in that hour.
Throughout all the world, a new spirit was born. Jesus brought to men's hearts hope for those steeped in sin.
God is all I loved. He is all is all I found. He is all there is. Wise is he who serves. I am wholly his.
I've often mentioned that story of Norman, who left Mount Washington because of a struggle with delusion of various kinds. One of them was that he just couldn't stand one of the other monks that he had to work with. This monk was not a pleasant person to be around. I know he used to say to me, "I don't know why I hate you, Don, but I hate you." And some people are like that. Actually, he was very good-hearted. He just had this sort of very strong ego, and because of his good heart, Master accepted him. But Norman couldn't stand him, and left partly because of him. He came back a year later. He said, "You know how I used to hate Jerry?" He said, "Where I work, there are 6 men exactly like him." The thing is that if we run away from our tests, then they only become stronger. Or it isn't really that they become stronger, we become smaller. We become weaker, and therefore they seem to be stronger. We need to accept whatever life dishes out to us. Just accept it. Life goes on anyway. It doesn't matter. We have to live anyway. If we can accept it calmly, then we find that suddenly it turns into a blessing. As Satya Sai Baba says, that sorrow is an interval between two joys. And it's true, life always alternates, and if we will take anything that comes calmly and quietly, we will find that it becomes a blessing in the long run. It really is God's grace that touches us in many different ways. So to take it into yourself, to take it calmly, to say that, well, God must want me to learn something. The frustration, of course, comes sometimes in not knowing what He wants you to learn. We would like to have something to show for it, wouldn't we? But if we can't find out what it is, if we just keep loving Him, nothing will touch us anyway. Master said, nothing will touch you if you inwardly keep loving God. So keep your mind and your heart in Him, and you will see, just as the resurrection came 3 days after the crucifixion, 2 days afterwards, so also if we will keep that faith inwardly, if we will be strong in ourselves, if we will just have faith that God loves us and love Him in return, that nothing else really matters, we will see that no matter what we go through, it will turn to be a very great blessing. Sometimes it'll take us in a very different direction. That's why we need to have non-attachment. That's why we need to have the feeling that it's only God's will that we want to do. Because as soon as we have something that we want, then we may find indeed that we suffer, and that there's no way out because what we want may be destroyed. But what God wants for us is for our happiness and for our good. And thus it is that if we keep that attitude, we find that we do grow. The resurrection can be not from death to immortality. The resurrection can be also just from one day to the next, overcoming some difficulty, learning some important lesson, and the greatest lesson of all, the realization that we are always with God, that we never really are far from Him, and that if we keep our minds on Him, then we will always be free in our hearts, and nothing will be able to touch us.
Welcome, friends. This is such a sacred time, the time of Easter, the time which is the time of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, when He came back and showed Himself to His disciples and to others. And for us on our path, resurrection isn't something new. We've read about it in Autobiography of a Yogi, how Lahiri Mahashaya resurrected his body in 3 different places the day after he left it, how he was seen by his disciples. Swami Sri Yukteswaraji resurrected his body in front of Master. After Master's passing, he showed himself to some disciples. Of course, Jesus resurrected his body, and Babaji's still living. And so it's not something that we wonder what is resurrection, we know it's Master has taught us about it. Also, the beautiful story about Lahiri Mahashaya raising Rama from the dead. And so resurrection it's a part of our beliefs, it's a part of what we know, it's a part of our teachings. But on a level that we can relate to more, resurrection is any beneficial change. It's a symbol of change, of transformation, of transcendence. The Master said any change that you make in yourself, he said, Swamiji said, this time could be more powerful than New Year's, to make changes in your consciousness, changes in your attitudes and your habits, and letting go of desires and attachments. And any change that you make in yourself is a bit of a resurrection. It's a resurrection of the soul, of the spirit, of who and what you really are beneath all of those things that you think you are. And the meaning of this particular time also is that, as Swamiji was saying, is that we're here for God alone. That no matter what happens, what tests come, what disappointments come, what betrayals come, what health problems come, what money problems, whatever it is, that we cling to Divine Mother and we love God no matter what. And we know that whatever is coming to us is coming from her hand, coming from our own karma, things that we need to learn. I was remembering the story of St. Anthony of the Desert, who was there for, Master said, 60 years living in a tomb or a cave, and he was tortured by Satan many years, and he just kept clinging to God. And finally Satan said, if you won't let go of your beliefs, I myself will come and destroy you. And St. Anthony didn't. He said, I will not give up God. I don't care what happens. And Satan appeared and he began to crack the tomb. And St. Anthony, he was a little bit shaken by that. But then what happened was Jesus appeared, and that delusion just went away. And St. Anthony looked up at Jesus and he said, Lord, Lord, why didn't you come before? I was in such agony. And this is how people feel. It could be the 11th hour, the last moment. You think everything is gone, it's all collapsed, and you'll never have what you need. And suddenly Divine Mother's hand, I've seen it so many times. And Jesus said to Anthony, I was with you all the time. I was just the same with you. But he had to go through those tests. No one wants to go through tests. They just want to have a wonderful life, but they don't have to deal with their karma and things that they need to change in themselves. But this path is about change. We've come for change. We've come to release all the things that hold us back from God. And I remember another story of someone that I knew who they were passing away, but this was a few days before. And this was a fellow, this was many years back. And, for the whole time he kept wondering, why is this happening to me? Why is it happening to me? What happened? I have bad karma, and on and on and on. And then he was in and out of consciousness. And at a certain point he woke up and he said, now I'm not dying anymore. And I was there reading some of the autobiography to him. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, I've seen Master, and I know it's all a dream. And I think for all of us, we'll be tested, but Master's there, and we realize at a certain point that it's all a dream. And so why do tests come? I remember Swamiji saying when he started Ananda village that there were so many difficulties. There were difficult people, there was no money, there were all kinds of problems. And he said, I had hoped that Divine Mother would come and that she would financially support us so that we could build this community. And he said, and she didn't. And he was surprised that she didn't. But he said what happened was we grew. We grew in attunement from having to put out more energy. We grew in energy, we grew in magnetism, we grew in faith in God, we grew in everything that we needed. We didn't sit back and wait for something to happen. So for us, tests come because we need to grow. We need to get more in attunement. We need to have more faith. We need to put out more energy. Many things. We need to change our attitudes. We need to release things, habits and attachments and desires. And so Divine Mother provides those ways that we can do that. And it's a blessing when things come. Now, how can we go through tests? It's not always easy. Everyone goes through tests. I don't know anyone who hasn't gone through challenges, difficulties, financially, or someone passing away who was close to them, or their health, or someone else's health who's close to them. There was, as Sister Gyanamata said, your religion will be tested in the cold light of day. And so it's not just about meditation, it's how you bring the peace, the attunement, the light, the blessings from your meditation into your daily life. There's a story of a woman who was a disciple of Buddha, and she lost her child. Her child passed away, and she came to him and she said, "Can you bring back my child?" And she said, "I'm in so much pain." And he said, "Go to a home and get some mustard seed, but it must be a home that has seen no death." And she went all around, and she came back empty-handed. And she said, "I couldn't find one place that hadn't seen death." And it happens to everyone, one struggle or another. But we're struggling to get into the light and to stay in the light. And so how do we go through tests? Well, I think a great example is Swami Kriyanandaji. He went through so many. He was in the hospital so many times. So many things happened around him, but he always kept a spirit. His spirit was always high. So I think one point is be in as much joy as you and positivity, even if it's not joy, be as positive as you possibly can. It's not easy. Be around positive people, read something positive, listen to the music, chant. I remember a time when someone died who was very close to me. The only thing I could do was chant and chant and chant for weeks. And finally I chanted that grief out. And so work with it. Don't just sit there and dwell in it. And Swamiji, he had so many different surgeries. I mean, but the interesting thing was one time he was in the hospital and the doctor had this whole list of all the things that were wrong with Swamiji. And he looked at him, he said, "Now just tell me," because he's looking at the chart. He says, "Now just tell me, how do you feel?" And Swamiji said, "Excellent." He said, "How's your health?" "Excellent." And he was always so positive. He had hip surgery. He had one hip done, and then he needed the other hip done, a replacement. So he had the other hip replaced, and then the first hip came out, and so he needed to do the first hip again. And everyone was feeling so sad for Swamiji. He had to keep going to the hospital for his hips. But what did he say? "Hip, hip, hip, hooray!" And he just didn't want us to drop our energy. He didn't want his energy to drop. And I saw him on so many occasions. I remember another time, I've told you this story. It's just more humorous than anything, but Swamiji would have people come and sit with him when he was in the hospital. And he was so giving. Some people had brought flowers, and in India we can't bring flowers so much to the hospital, but Swamiji, his room was full of flowers. And he just kept thinking, what can I give? Take these flowers to people who don't have flowers in their rooms, he said. And he had people just go and take flowers. And he said, and also sit and talk with them. He was always thinking of others instead of, oh, what me, oh, my problem, oh, I had surgery, oh, I feel bad. And another thing, he was in the hospital. He was in a wheelchair, and he asked, I heard this story from Davy G, and he had someone, I think it was her, Jyotishji, just helping him, rolling him down in the hallway in the hospital in that wheelchair. And there was someone else who was much worse off than Swamiji, and his head was down, and he just felt so bad, and he looked so bad. Swamiji was passing him, and he never let anyone really pass without some blessing. And Swamiji just looked at that man. He says, "Good morning." And the man just went up like this, and he just kind of woke up. But this is the way, just to put out more energy. I remember a time when I was really struggling in the beginning of being here in India. There in India, I didn't know anyone. Everything was new, and the language and all this, we didn't know quite what to do and all. And I remember I was helping Swamiji. I would walk from the people who know our ashram, the first ashram, B10 by 8, to Guru Kripa, where Swamiji lived. It was only a few blocks away, but I'd walk back and forth doing, I remember one was late in the night, 12 o'clock, just going back and forth. He just would keep you busy. He knew what I was going through. And then I was walking back and I thought, gee, I've got so many problems, but I don't have any time. And that was the best medicine. Just don't sit there and think, oh, the problem, I had this test and the difficulty and this delusion. And finally, keep your energy up. Keep your mind on God through your meditation, through chanting, listening to the music, as I was saying, being with Guru Bhais, coming to satsangs. Don't just sit and sort of think the test is going to go away. You have to get bigger than the test. And as you do, you will find that you get stronger, you get more energetic, you get more centered in yourself, you have more magnetism, you have positive thoughts, you have more concentration and focus, and you have a energy flowing in your spine. And as you do these things, you will find that the tests, they're there, but they're smaller. That's what I've discovered. You're bigger and they're smaller. But if you shrink down, they're big and you're small. And as you keep God in your heart and in your mind, and just keep clinging, no matter how much. I remember Swamiji said he was going through such a delusion. He said, I just felt Master didn't even love me. And he said, I didn't even care. I just thought, even if he doesn't love me, I love him. And isn't that a wonderful attitude? Even if you feel God doesn't love me, he's beating me or whatever, I love you, Lord, and I'm never going to let go. And no matter what you try to do to me, and as you do that, I remember one night, sort of recently, I've shared this with some of you, and I just felt in my home in Delhi, there was just a very dark energy. I had never felt that before. It was just this cloud, and I was in bed, and it was scary. And I knew it was just a dark force. And I just kept lying down and I just kept chanting Om Guru, Om Guru, Om. Sometimes it's the only thing you can do. This forces from worries, from fears, from doubts. I just Om Guru, Om Guru, Om Guru. And then in the morning, it was still there, but it was less and less. And I just felt it was a very dark force. I went in the meditation room. I did a few kriyas and pop, it was gone. I loved it. I did a few kriyas, it was gone. And so just know, we have everything we need to be able to break through any delusion, to break through any test, and to reach out and hold on to the light and hold on to God and Gurus. God bless you all, and happy Easter to each one of you. Now ask Nitendra to join. We just have a couple of questions today.
Thank you, Dhyana. First question, Dhanaji, is I don't seem to grow, but rather shrink when I'm confronted with challenges. So, how can I gain the strength to confront them instead?
Well, a devotee, a disciple has to be courageous, for one, or you won't make it a year on the path. I mean, you have to just keep putting out energy. And I was always strong. I think it's from past lives. And I'm looking at Natindra, and, I think most people who come onto this path are pretty strong. And you bring that in from other lifetimes. So use that in your life. Don't say, well, I can't do it, or, and living the Ananda life, you have to do many things. Getting up early, energizing every day, giving a talk you don't feel like giving, going out and doing something, helping at the center. There's so many things. I was just sharing with my friend here, Dion, who's helping on this end. I remember one time I was just so exhausted from seva. I was just sevaed out. It was a Kriyaban retreat. And I just went home. I just laid flat on the floor. I just thought, I can't do anything else. I don't want to see one more Kriyaban. I don't want to see anybody. And then a knock came on the door. And it was somebody saying, Dhyana, we need you to come and help do something else. I just thought, not now, Divine Mother, not now. Please give me a break. And she didn't. I had to get up, and I went, and I found that I had energy. And so don't limit yourself, and just keep doing things. As you get up in the morning, you feel, okay, just test yourself every day. Put on the alarm, or, whatever, but keep challenging yourself. Don't be weak. There's no need to be weak. We have too many tools to be weak. We've got so many fantastic things to strengthen the energy flow in the spine. You can chant Om at the chakras, do the Om technique, Hong Sa, do your Kriyas, do higher Kriyas, be at the satsang, get out and energize, walk until you sweat. I know in Delhi right now you don't have to go outside to do that, but get some strength in you. Be a warrior, a spiritual warrior. Don't be a weakling. Look at Master. I mean, God, all you have to do is hear his voice. And he just is so strong and magnetic. And you want to become like him. You don't want to be a weak or weakling disciple. And so I have found if I put out the energy, Divine Mother helps me. If I shrink back, she's going to force me anyway. And so you're going to get the test either way. So if you do it yourself, it's easier and you get the help right away. If you say, no, then it's much harder. So do all the things that I said tonight, but don't sit back and think no test is going to come. I remember Swamiji said about persecution. He said, I sprinkle it on my breakfast in the mornings. I eat it for breakfast. It's just there all the time. So people have different things, worries all the time, fears all the time, doubts. I mean, these are tests until you confront them. The last thing I'll say about this, work it out through Kriya. Just get rid of those things that are from past lives that you can work it out through Kriya. Just every Kriya, just give it to Divine Mother. Get it out of your system, and you'll find that you're strong. At the beginning, you may seem a little shaky, but get behind there, and there's a solid devotee there. Okay, and then the next one.
Yes, Dhanaji, this is the last one. There are people who I live with who are weak and they pull me down when tests come. They want me to be like them instead of being strong in myself. So what do you recommend in such a situation?
You can't be like them. Just don't do that. Don't go there. You can just say, our teachings say this, or my guru has said this, or here's a book about affirmations. This is what we follow. Or this is How to Have Courage by Yoganandaji. Please read it. Or How to Be Positive, or How to Have Your Potential. All of these books, you can give a book to someone, but don't go there. It's not our teachings, and it's not our path. And if you're positive, people will typically be more positive. The other thing is ask Master to change their hearts. And you'll find that suddenly the person's a little bit changed. Suddenly they're more interested. Suddenly they're more uplifted, or something will happen. I'll tell you now, I'll close with this story because I love this story. As you probably know, I've told it many times about my mom. I'm going to visit my mom next week. But she was very against Ananda and Swami. Who is that man, Swami Kriyananda? You know, what is that place? And I didn't know much about Ananda. I said, Mom, all I know is the place is called Ananda, and Ananda means joy. So I left everything, and I came up to Ananda, and then my whole family cried. They were mad. They were upset. My mother was upset for 12 years that I left everything and came to Ananda. But I didn't leave. I was going to stay with Swamiji and Master. So then, after 12 years, Swamiji had a program in Los Angeles, and that's where I'm from. My mother lives there. So I invited my mother to come, and this was one of the best things in my life. So then Swamiji didn't give the talk that night. For some reason, Jyotishan Deviji gave the talk. So my mother and we came and we were sitting near the back. And so at the very beginning of the program, who walks in? Swamiji. Swamiji walks in, and where does he sit? In our row. And who does he sit next to? My mother. I loved it. And so he was sitting between me, or maybe on the other side, it was me, my mom, and Swamiji. And he knew who she was, and she knew who he was. And so afterwards, everyone stood up, and Swamiji turns and he says, hello, I'm Swami Kriyananda. I mean, in all these years, my mother's going, who is that man? What is he brainwashing you? That's a cult. And my mother, she just was so, emotional. She says, he says, hello, I'm Swami Kriyananda. So she says her name, and she says to him, I waited 12 years to hear this. She says, I'm on the path too. I went, wow. And Swamiji didn't miss a beat. He said, I know you are. And that took care of that karma. So just let Master take care of it for you. It may take a long time, but keep offering, keep praying, and don't leave the path because of other people, their opinions about this path and your guru. God bless you all. And thank you, Natindra. Have a wonderful Easter, everyone.